Hey everyone, and welcome back to Cowbutt Crunchy's Cosplay. It's been a year since we updated this channel. Long-form videos are kind of hard and time-consuming, but we are back, baby, and with a new, kind of weird project to make life-size American Girl dolls. And life-size dolls requires custom-printed fabric. So in this video, we are going to review the 3 fabric companies that we used for our samples: Contrado, Spoonflower, and weirdly enough, Joann fabrics. Just so you know, none of this is sponsored content. We purchased all of these samples ourselves, and this is our honest opinion. So stay tuned to see who won. Printing fabric isn't cheap no matter where you go, so if you're gonna shell out $15, $25, $35 a yard for your custom design, it better be worth your money. For the American Girls, we needed 2 different fabrics printed: an all-over printed pattern for Kirsten and a crisp geometric grid for Samantha. With all 3 of our companies, we printed a standard crisp cotton, so weight really didn't factor too much into our decision making. This was all about the print itself. And at the end of the day, we're looking for 3 things. 1, color accuracy. 2, speckles or blotchiness, and 3, the crispness of the print. I think when most cosplayers think of custom printed fabric, the first company that comes to mind is Spoonflower. Spoonflower offers a ton of different fabric options to choose from, although actually not as much as they used to. However, they still offer a few different styles of cotton, and we ordered samples of their signature cotton at $19 a yard, cotton lawn at $24 a yard, and cotton sateen at $29 a yard. We donked up and ordered this really weird version of Samantha's fabric originally before we did the reorder with our own custom design. I don't know where our sample went, it has disappeared into the void, so I'm just going to be focusing on Kirsten's samples for now. With the blue cotton print, the colors were nice and bold, great accurate blues, and saturated colors. They were really consistent between the 2 types of fabrics as well. The prints also had minimal speckling, about what I would expect for a blocky print like this. However, once you get up close, all 3 of our samples showed a real lack of crispness. The separation between the colors kind of bleeds together, and this is really apparent with the thin lines like the ones in the 4-leaf pattern on Kirsten's print or Samantha's entire striped pattern. This isn't a big deal if you're standing far away, but up close, things were a lot more blurred than we'd really like for over $20 a yard. Next up, Contrato. Contrato is a UK-based company who specializes in quilting, which is actually an important fact that becomes really imperative when you order fabric, for reasons I will get to at the end of the video, so if you plan to order from them, please watch that bit. Contrato is going to be your most expensive printer, just edging out Spoonflower, but they offer an absolutely huge range of fabric choices, including crazy stuff like printed leather that is genuinely, legitimately really cool. We printed our samples in Prima Lawn Natural for $20, Janus Poplin for $30, and Silhouette Cotton Sateen also for $30, but there are so many other options. While we didn't love the price, we found that all of their fabrics contained minimal speckling, even on our super saturated Kirsten print. These prints were also decently crisp, with no noticeable blurring, even on the little 4-leafs where the saturated colors met. Samantha's geometric print and the tiny lines were also satisfyingly crisp as well. So, as far as color accuracy goes, we found that this really varies depending on your fabric type. It's a little hard to see with the color balancing here, but the Lawn Natural is slightly less green and slightly darker than the Poplin. Finally, Joann Fabrics actually has a new printing service, which is news to us. We grabbed a cotton sheeting sample for Kirsten at $19 a yard and cotton sateen samples in 2 saturations for Samantha at $23 a yard. This fabric, yeah, it's $23 a yard, which may not really sound like a deal, but this is several dollars cheaper than either of the other shop's equivalent sateen. I will say though, both of these fabrics had a heavier hand and a more moderate weight than the other samples, which may be great for what you're looking for, but if you need a gentler drape, it'll probably require some hand washing. However, even though Joann was the cheapest option, it blew both Spoonflower and Contrado out of the water in terms of crispness. I mean, look at that! How are they getting these lines so tight? There's no bleed whatsoever with Kirsten's print, and this also looks amazing on Samantha's lines. However, we got some really hit or miss results from the color accuracy. Again, this is tricky to see on camera, but our single Kirsten sample, like the Contrado lawn, was darker and less green. However, Samantha's reds and black were exactly what we expected. Perfect match here. This could be due to the fabric type, or it could also be that Joann struggles more with the cyan ink instead of magenta. That could be the case because Kirsten's red flowers looked color accurate. We also ran into a hit or miss issue when it came to speckling. Kirsten's big print had noticeable white speckling throughout the solid blue color, and this is really noticeable when compared to the other two companies who managed to keep this at a minimum. However, on the flip side, Samantha's print didn't have this issue. It's not a big blocky print, so any speckling might be there, it just isn't that noticeable. So what did we pick? Well, actually, we went with two different companies. For Samantha, we ordered from Joann Fabrics. You know, crispness is king for this striped print, and we felt that this catered to all of the strengths that Joann brought to the table. Plus, our design is predominantly red with no big blocks of color, which were the two real weak points with this printer. However, for Kirsten, we chose Contrado. While it was the most expensive, we loved the feel of this fabric, and we felt like it had the best combination of color, crispness, and no speckling for this kind of tricky, big, solid print. Both of these fabrics looked great when their yardage arrived, although there was some really funny comparisons between the two of them. For one, Joann's has this huge margin, like this huge block of 3-inch white all over the place. It also has a really crooked edge on one side. To contrast, Contrato is printed much closer to the edge and actually has quite a few edging options to print from. However, you see how we're only working with one piece of the Kirsten print? You remember how I mentioned earlier about Contrato ordering issues because they cater to quilting? Yeah, that is it. So when you actually go to order the Contrato fabric, if you are not purchasing quilting pieces and you are used to ordering everything in yardage, you are going to be confused. You know, I consider us pretty tech savvy when it comes to this stuff, but even so, this threw us for a loop. When you go to print a custom repeating pattern, you have two options here. You have a print width and you have a print length. That is not, as you might think, the length and width of your repeating image. That is actually the length of your entire piece of fabric. What makes this even more confusing is if you actually look at the FAQ under the maximum dimensions, it actually tells you that if you want to order more, you should just increase the quantity, so ×2 for 20 yards or ×4 for 40 yards. And in my cosplay brain, where I order yardage all the time, I think, oh yeah, I want 6 yards, so I'll order ×6 of my print. And what actually arrived at our house was 6 blocks of 1 yard fabric. Believe it or not, we actually managed to make this work, but for pretty much any other project, I feel like this would have been an enormous problem. To Contrato's credit, we contacted them about this and they offered us 20% off on a reprint, but that's a pretty darn expensive mistake, so please be aware of that if you order from them in the future. And there you have it. I really do think that picking two different companies depending on the strengths of what they could offer for our individual prints was definitely the right way to go. This fabric for Kirsten from Contrato looks absolutely amazing, and likewise the geometric grid for Samantha really did print the best with Joann. So, who you go with might depend on what your own custom fabric looks like. I'm very, very pleased with this. I think that it just looks really good, both up close and from a distance, and I hope that you guys enjoyed this video as well. And we'll see you again next time.